Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third in our series, Palliative Care in Aged Care Facilities. And today we are welcoming Karen Wharton, who is our guest presenter, and she is presenting a topic around communication, helping difficult conversations. And we were welcoming Karen today. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay respects to our elders past, present and emerging. We respectfully acknowledge the contribution that Aboriginal people make to our community and to improving the health status of our community. My name is Anne Burns, and also with us today is Hayden Welsh and our presenter Karen. Hayden will introduce Karen to you and give you a little bit of information about Karen.
So as Anne mentioned, we have Karen Wharton joining us today. Karen started her nursing career in the 80s, training at Royal Brisbane Hospital, which at the time was the largest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere. On graduating, Karen and her husband Andrew went from one extreme to the other, moving all the way out to Bourke and working in health there, as well as running a tertiary Christian college and raising a family in the outback. Apart from nursing, Karen has also worked in youth mentoring, primary school teaching, pony club, chaplaincy, and is a published author. Her current side click is leading tours in the Middle East. Karen has a special interest in the power of communication and is looking forward to sharing this topic with you today.
Thank you, Hayden. Now you're doing the housekeeping for me.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Anne.
So today is a 30-minute presentation with 15 minutes at the end for questions. You can use the Q&A tab, which you will see on your screen. And if you are wanting to move questions to a higher priority, you can improve their status by using the little arrow button, which will move them to the top of the screen. We will allow time for questions at the end of the presentation if time permits. Today we are having a more open forum than you may have experienced in the past. Karen welcomes interaction and questions during the presentation. You will notice that your cameras are on. When we post your this webinar to the website, we will be removing any images of people during that time, but for interaction purposes, you will have visibility on the screen. At the end of the interaction today, there will be a QR code for you to answer a short survey on your achievement of your learning goals. And now I'll hand over to Karen.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone. It's lovely to have you joining us today. And as Anne said, there'll be a few times that I will ask for your participation so you can unmute yourself, because obviously there's a lot more experience than just I have. So look, our learning goals today are to have an understanding of what to avoid and to have an understanding of what is helpful in order to have increased confidence when we're having difficult conversations. So certainly you can't work in health. In fact, you can't work anywhere without at times encountering difficult conversations, and it's the same in our families and pretty much everywhere we go. And so hopefully some of these tips today, you'll find helpful, and I'm keen to hear your tips too. So I'm going to prompt Anne to move on to the next slide. Thank you, Anne. So I thought I'd just start with the first half of a story, which we'll complete at the end. We all experience difficult conversations, and I thought I might share with you something that happened recently. Like, palliative care gets referrals in lots of ways from individuals, from family members, from outlying regional communities, from aged care, from GPs. Usually if there's a referral from the ward, a star just pops up on our computer screen. We don't generally get a phone call about it. But this particular day, the medical officer rang me and said, I wanted to give palliative care the heads up before you come and see this patient. This is a really challenging family. It's a difficult situation. We've got an Indigenous lady that we can do no more for actively. We've exhausted all of our treatment options. She is on an end-of-life pathway, but she has 11 children. The family are not accepting of that decision. They've actually sued the hospital before, and so we're quite afraid that this might go to litigation. There's a lot of anger and misunderstanding in the room. Please don't come without, excuse me, an Aboriginal health worker, but palliative care, can you please come and see this lady? So I think we've all had times like that you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't someone else answer that phone call? Why did it come to me? And different situations, but we've all had encounters, and I've just listed a few things here where we're going to encounter anger or resistance, pushback. We might have people walk out on us during a family meeting. We might have refusal to be engaged or denial. We might even face accusations and some unkind accusations. But I suppose that's the setting, that if we've got a tricky situation, what is helpful and what is not helpful. So Anne, if we can move on. So look, I tend to think, this is not my phrase, but I've adopted it. Good communication skills are the health worker's superpower. And this is an interesting statistic. 49%, so pretty much half of litigation in the medical realm occurs against just 3% of doctors. And so clearly that was investigated. Why are a small number of people having a large number of complaints? And the common denominator that often caused people to become so dissatisfied that they actually sued was traced back to poor communication. If people don't feel heard, if people don't feel that their concerns were listened to, then often they feel disgruntled, dissatisfied, and we get that sort of the negative emotions that go with it. So this is where you guys come in too. What doesn't help? So we're stepping into a tricky or heated situation. What sort of things have you thought, oh, that didn't help? So I'm keen if anyone would like to contribute, and feel free to unmute yourself if you want to contribute, and if you don't, that's fine too.
Hi.
Hi.
So something would be along the lines of having preconceived ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you've gone in thinking it's going to be a bad case, you're going to be giving out that energy anyway.
Yes. Yes, I think that's a great point. And I have actually had to remind myself, don't rely on someone else's assessment that this is a tricky family. Go and just give them a blank slate. Just give them a chance before that we presume that. Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, it's Camille from Canberra. I think what doesn't help the family is if all of the concerns were not, like even little concern weren't attended or not spoken to, and then all of a sudden, like it builds up, if that makes sense. Like, yeah.
It does, because if people don't feel that their concern is heard or acknowledged, or if it's just fallen on deaf ears, they generally feel they have to up the ante, don't they, to get that acknowledged. So you're absolutely right, and it can be that adding insult to injury thing where it snowballs. Thank you. That's a very good point. All right, so we might, thank you for that, and I'm sure there's plenty. So I've only put down a few because I thought I don't want to overload you. So we can. So the first thing that I found is really unhelpful is hurry, and I know this. I mean, this sounds terrible. Like, we're always in a hurry. How can we not hurry? We're time poor. We're short-staffed. But not allowing time to listen and acknowledge what people are experiencing is often something that means things will go poorly. And there is an interesting statistic. They've recorded the amount of times in medical, like in GP appointments, where GPs are in a hurry and so they interrupt the patient. They interrupt because, come on, I'm in a hurry, I've got to get through this. And they found on average that the appointments where the doctor interrupts take 3 minutes longer than the appointments where they stop and listen. And because what happens is if someone's interrupted, they don't feel heard. So when the appointment should be over, the patient then revisits it because they think, I don't know if the doctor really got what I meant. And so things tend to go around and round and get rehashed. So hurrying sets things up to go poorly, but also it's not even time efficient because people will come back to it. Now, the next thing that is really not helpful is resistance. And I want you to think about an arm wrestle. Like if someone puts their arm up to you and starts pushing, your natural instinct will be to push back. That's just it's an instinct. And it's really the same in communication. If someone says something and we resist it, someone says, oh, palliative care, what would they have to offer? They're just the grim reaper. And I go, well, excuse me, people linked in with palliative care generally, live longer on average. They'll go, well, not my dad. Like they'll come back. If I resist, they resist. And we get this power tussle, a bit like an arm wrestle. So even if it goes against our instinct, if someone resists it, just try not to come back with an answer. Let it slide because that has a way of escalating tension. What also doesn't help is being the expert. Sometimes, especially if we're feeling a bit unsure or insecure, the temptation is, well, look, I'll just show them all this knowledge I've got. But when someone is hurting, empathy is far more powerful than education. They don't need to know that you know everything. What actually matters to them is someone to sit with them and to feel with them and to be present with them. So being the expert is often unhelpful. And I mean, we hear a lot about body language, don't we? That, statistics that more than 80% of what's communicated is nonverbal. So what is not helpful often is standing over someone. That often can communicate a bit of power play. We might not mean it to, but if we can sit on someone's level and talk together, then we inadvertently are communicating. We are on the same level. We're in this together. And I always try very hard to find a chair. Yesterday I was seeing a lady in oncology and I had to walk around the whole treatment room to find a chair. But these little things that take time, they actually save time because we're building rapport, we're building understanding. So anyway, there's a few of my tips of what don't help. Okay, and now let's talk about, well, what does help? So, back to the wisdom of the room, what have you guys found really helpful when you're in a challenging communication setting? I'm sure you've all got lots of ideas. Does anyone want to be brave?
I go first. So if you don't actually know the person, you introduce yourself.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then just, start with, basic, how's the weather, gain their trust and go from there.
Excellent. And that's just sort of good manners, isn't it? You start at the beginning. It's what they say, common sense is often uncommon. So thank you for that. Excellent. Who you are and what your role is. So they, you don't want them to go, I don't even know who I'm talking to. Thank you for that. Anyone else found something that's helpful? All right, well, we might go on, Anne. And I'm sure that a lot of these you already know and use. So, A for acknowledge, and I think we touched on this a bit before, but it's so important to acknowledge what someone is saying and feeling because they really can't mentally move on if they don't think that what they've said has been heard. So to take a time to I mean, whatever the situation might be, like, hypothetically, so you don't feel that people are taking your mum's pain seriously. You don't feel, that nursing staff are really noticing when mum's uncomfortable. So just because we acknowledge it doesn't mean that we're agreeing with it, but we're letting them know, I'm hearing you. And B is be fully present. So we talked about the body language, about sitting down, listening, and reflecting is a really powerful tool. So reflecting, like a mirror, reflects back your image. You're not parroting. Say someone was complaining about the food and said, oh, I can hardly eat what they serve. It's so cold. We might say something like, oh, so the meals aren't nice and hot like they were at home. It's really, must be a big thing to be getting used to eating in a different environment and not just getting to have, what you want when you want, and it's not as warm as you'd like. Like, we'll put it into different words, but if we reflect it back, the patient is again feeling that we're listening to them. C is a calm presence. And I think I learnt this when I had a teenage daughter, that if she started to talk faster and get high-pitched, and I talk faster and get high-pitched, like, we just escalate together. And one day I thought, Karen, you're the grown-up. You're the grown-up. So just don't talk faster. Don't talk higher. Be the calm presence. And, the escalation often peters out if only one person is doing it. So just sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I just say to myself, remember, you're the calm presence. I don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers, but I can be calm. So that is often helpful. D for discussing their concerns over our agenda. So, for example, say I go to a home visit, and the purpose of the home visit might be to complete an advanced care directive together, and we've pre-communicated that I'll come to the home, they're going to have family present, and we'll see if we can do their advanced care directive, as an example. But then when I get to the home, they're really concerned because they went to the doctor yesterday and their endone had run out and they didn't get their script. And you know what? If I just harp on about my agenda, it's not going to go well. So hearing their concern, discussing their concern, is there something I can do about that? Like, for example, in that example, I might pick up the phone and ring a surgery and say, hey, this person didn't get their script yesterday. So is there something I can do to address their concern? Because that is actually more important to them right now than what I came to do. My agenda can take the back seat. I can always do my agenda another time, but often when we address their concern and discuss what's troubling them, then you know what often happens, don't you, is that they'll say, oh, and what were you here for today? Oh, you were going to do the advanced care directive, weren't you? And often then they'll be really happy to move on to our agenda when we have discussed what's concerning them. And I find this is really helpful too. Sometimes when it feels really polarized and it almost feels like we're on different teams, the family are trying to convince you to do what's best for their loved one. To just remember that we actually are on the same team. I often think, I love this about palliative care. We take a step back instead of saying, I can't see the forest for the trees, to take a step back and to say, I really think that we share the same goals. You want what's best for mum. We want what's best for mum. You want mum's pain managed. We want mum's pain managed. You want people to listen and to facilitate what she says is important, and that is absolutely our priority too. And sometimes stepping back and trying to help people see we're not on different teams, we don't have different goals, we're actually all patient-centered, we actually want the same outcome. And F for follow-up. We know the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. But I think I want to use a bit of a bridge illustration here. So, for example, in Dubbo, maybe for the last 2 years, we've been building a new bridge, the River Street Bridge. Now, it takes a long time to build a strong bridge because a strong bridge is going to carry B-doubles, road trains, heavy traffic. And something is not going to be able to do the work of the heavy lifting if it hasn't been built well. And I feel that we can take that illustration into our relationships with our patients and our families, into our aged care settings. Often our natural instinct, if someone is angry or bristly or critical or accusatory, all those things we talked about at the beginning, our natural instinct is, I don't want to go in that room. I don't want to talk to them. I want to pull back. I will have as minimal to do with them as possible. And that's absolutely sort of counterintuitive. It's the wrong instinct, because the less time we spend with them, the less we're building that bridge, the less we're building that rapport, the less we're building a strong relationship that will actually be able to carry, the heavy traffic. So I think we follow up as often as we can with when something's been difficult, because then often they really do get the message, hey, I think they actually are for us. They are on the same page. So, following up, not sort of backing out, even though our instinct might want us to. Okay, so I don't know if you guys feel like this, but when I started in palliative care, which was about 8 years ago now, I used to come home and say to my husband, oh my gosh, I feel like every day I'm on an episode of Thank God You're Here. I don't know if you've seen that TV show where there's this whole scenario and the person walks in the room, they got no idea what's going on. I would knock on a door and walk into a room and I would have no idea. Are they angry? Do they feel that their diagnosis was missed and now they're dying because someone didn't pick up on the cues? Or, I just wouldn't know what was behind that door. So I want to go back to that story we started with, that story where the doctor rang to warn me about this family that had sued the hospital before. And partly I went in fear and trepidation, and partly I did like the first, I'm sorry I couldn't see the names as you communicated, but the first person who talked about, we're going to go back. Please, Anne, can we go back to Thank God You're Here? Thank you. The first person who said go in with a clean slate, I so agree with that. So I went into that lady with the 11 children where they'd sued the hospital, and I did the tips we talked about, sat at her level, no hurry. I thought it doesn't matter how long this takes. I want it to go well. I listened to her concerns. I listened to families' concerns. I tried to be the calm presence. And this little lady had been one of the stolen generation, and she told me her story of being removed from her family, being raised in a different state, but certainly a different location, then rediscovering her family when she was an adult. She had an incredible story, and so did her children. And when we sort of had that unhurried communication, it actually was a really beautiful time and a really positive encounter. And that lady wanted to return to country, so we got her back to Brewarrina. We did the thing we talked about, don't withdraw if people are tricky, but I said we can keep in touch on the phone, we can do video conferencing, we can do telehealth, VCs, and keeping up the relationship. And it actually went really, really well. So, that's the goal, isn't it? That we put some things in place that can help these encounters be more positive. So I've put a bit of a summary there: sitting down, listening, calmness, acknowledging, reflecting, certainly introducing ourselves, people knowing who they're speaking with, kindness and patience. It's not all going to happen quickly. So look, that's not comprehensive, but they're some of the things I found helpful, and I totally acknowledge there'll be lots more wisdom in the room than I bring. So here are some resources. Thank you to the PHN for making these available. So some really good resources there. Palliative and End of Life Model of Care, Palliative Care Australia, The Dying Process, and the Agency for Clinical Innovation. So it's worth you even doing, you can take your phone out and take a photo of that, because I often do that in an education and then I've got it on my gallery when I want to look up a resource. So yeah, time for questions, comments, shared wisdom. Anyone want to contribute anything or ask anything? And it's fine if you don't.
So Karen, people can type or they can ask you a question.
Whatever they like.
Yeah, we can still hear you,
Oh,
Karen.
you can still hear me. I didn't know if I'd lost sound. And it's fine if there's no questions.
I want to have a question.
Go ahead.
Just with like when a family is in denial and transitioning to like palliative,
Sure.
and they the family doesn't want to acknowledge that their loved one's dying. Like how do you approach that in that type of situation when that happens?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Well, I have a little saying that I find helpful. I often say, I don't need to shatter someone's denial. The disease process is going to do that. So
That's a good one.
yeah, I think
remember that. That's great.
Yeah, because what I think is, if someone's dying, my goodness, it's not like if we deny it, it's going to go away. But I don't feel like I need to hammer them with those cold, hard facts. The disease is going to hammer them. The disease is going to do that. So my job is not to get in there and shatter their denial. My job is to get in there and be as supportive and empathetic as I can. If people are afraid of the term palliative care, then we can, sometimes we say we're the people who specialise in symptom management. So sometimes we avoid the phrase if that is not helpful, if that term is escalating people. Sometimes, after we've done the things we've talked about, building empathy and listening, we can say, like I say to people all the time, 95% of my work in palliative care is symptom management. Only a small amount of it is end-of-life care. Palliative care spends most of their time making people, this is our phrase, feel as well as possible for as long as possible. So it's really about helping that person to be comfortable, to feel well. But I never feel I have to shatter denial. I think the disease cruelly is already doing that. So maybe changing our terminology, might be helpful for them.
I think that's really great. Great feedback.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Excellent question.
So Karen, I think if we don't have any other questions from the group, I'd welcome people to grab their cameras and just scan the QR code. And if you could take the time to complete the short evaluation, we would really appreciate that. Your comments provide us with feedback on upcoming presentations and helps us to provide improved service. So thank you very much for if you're able to take the time to scan that code and complete the evaluation. On that slide, there is also Karen's email address with New South Wales Health, and if you have any direct questions for her, I'm sure she would be welcome to answer those questions for you. So thank you all today for taking the time from your very busy timetables to gather this afternoon with Karen, Hayden and myself for the third in our series. We will now be taking a short break over Christmas, and we will be recommencing these series of presentations, palliative care in aged care. And yes, they will commence in 2026. Wishing you all a very happy Christmas with your friends and family, and a very lovely also New Year. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year. So thank you and goodbye from the PHN and the LHD.
Thank you.
Karen.
Really
you.
enjoyed that.
Thank you.